Hi, it's Kernotex here, and I'm going to be showing you how to install Linux from scratch 12.1 on a machine which already has Windows 10 on it. So the machine I'll be using is about 10 years old. It's a 6th generation Intel i7. It's a reasonable machine. It's not, although it's an i7, not the most blindingly fast processor, despite the fact that it's an i7, I presume because it's a mobile chip. I think it's only got 4 threads, but it has got lots of memory. It's got 12 gigs of memory, so that's a bonus, I suppose, although I don't doubt if it have much effect on the build times. I'm expecting this to take approximately, about 15, 16 hours, so maybe a couple of days from beginning to end, and obviously not all that time will be sitting at the terminal bashing away at the keyboard. There are a few big packages which will take maybe an hour or several hours to build. So it's not an intense build. If it was a fast machine, probably spend a lot of the time just hammering away at commands. So it gives us a bit of a chance to take our time. So what I'll be doing is I'll be replacing the Windows 10 on this machine. Windows 10 is due to be retired later on this year, so it's probably a good idea to try and find an opportunity to replace Windows with something else if your machine, such as this one, can't take Windows 11, or if indeed you want to get away from Windows completely. Although Linux from scratch might not be the first choice to move operating system if you've never used Linux before. If you have used Linux and you're interested in doing something a bit more custom, then Linux from scratch is a good way to get involved in that, to find out how everything works. So what I'm going to do is to log on to this. Let's get rid of that. That may be one of the reasons why you want to get away from Windows. Now what we need to do is to write a USB or indeed a CD-ROM or DVD-ROM if you're still using them. This machine does have an optical drive on it, so that would be a possibility. But generally people today use USB sticks, are far more convenient. We've got to write an image of an existing Linux operating system which is used as a host, so an environment that we can build our new Linux from scratch environment in. So it's kind of a chicken and an egg situation. You need an operating system to be able to build an operating system. I always recommend Gentoo because it's a source compiled distribution, as Linux from scratch is. Therefore it's got all the tools ready to build Linux from scratch. They're now producing a regular updated live USB image, which they call a live GUI USB image. There it is there. So I thoroughly recommend that because you won't need to do anything else once you boot into that. You can just get on with doing the instructions. I know a lot of people put comments on my channel saying they'd rather use a different distribution. That's fine if you want to do that. Just bear in mind that other distributions may have other prerequisites that are not in the Linux from scratch book. There may be some development packages missing to allow you to actually compile programs. The Debian, Ubuntu, etc., all those derivatives have certain packages missing. Another thing is that the default shell might not be bash. Again, Debian and Ubuntu, I believe they use a shell called dash, which is not compatible with the Linux from scratch installation instructions, so that needs to be updated as well. I do have some hints on how to get around some issues with some of the more popular Linux from scratch distributions in getting them prepared for Linux from scratch. It's a little bit out of date, but it should be valid even now. If I go onto my channel, I can show you what to look for. Best things to go to the playlists area, because I've got nearly 1,000 videos. It would take quite a while to ferret through all of them. So the ones you'd be looking for are these ones here: the Linux configuration for host Linux configuration for the LFS chapter 2.2. So chapter 2.2 has got the requirements that the host must meet to be able to meet the minimum build requirements, if you like, to build Linux from scratch successfully. You can see that I've got various different operating Linux distributions there. There's 10 of them altogether. I just picked the top 10 most popular distributions according to DistroWatch at the time, so they might not be as popular, some of them, or there might be others that are in the top 10 now, but it gives you a taste. You can see they're no more than 10 minutes, any of them, apart from the first one, so they're not too detailed. Some of them don't need anything done. I think the Endeavour OS is one. That's one I used to recommend because the Gen 2 Foundation weren't producing live GUI distributions at the time. They had been producing them ad hoc up until about 2016, and that version was getting quite old. So I found that Endeavour OS was a good substitute. Again, it had everything it needed. By default, there was no work to be done. So if you decide you don't want to use Gen 2, or you can't get hold of it for some reason, Endeavour OS is a very good substitute. I haven't used it for a few years, but I remember seeing a comment by somebody a few months ago saying that it's still in a configuration where you could build Linux from scratch directly from it without any additional packages or changes required. But yeah, the other ones they're either very similar because they're based off Debian, for example, like Ubuntu. They need similar packages, or others maybe just one package that needs to be installed, and I'll show you how to install them. So let's say if you do want to use a different host distribution, there's nothing wrong with that, although be prepared for maybe something not working quite the same as what I do in these videos, because as I say, we'll be using Gen 2. Everything is already there with Gen 2. It just works really nicely. So I'd thoroughly recommend it, especially if you've never built Linux from scratch before, you're a bit unsure. If you follow exactly what I do, I can almost guarantee you'll have a successful build. The bit I can't guarantee is your hardware. I don't know what problems or what issues you might have with drivers for your hardware, but assuming the hardware was compatible, then yes, you'll have a guaranteed working Linux from scratch system if you follow everything I do on these videos. So Gen 2, the image we need is this image here. If you just click on that, it's a 3 GB download. I'm not on a internet that's not very fast, so I've already downloaded that here. In fact, it's about a week or so old, so it might be updated. No, that's still the current version, 16th of February, so they had been updating these weekly, so maybe they're going monthly now, possibly, or fortnightly, possibly. It's over 2 weeks ago now. So yeah, if you grab it, or by the time you see this, it's a little bit newer, it shouldn't make really much difference at all. But currently what I'll be using is the one that's available at the moment. The next thing we need to do is to download something that can write this ISO image. I have a feeling, I'm not sure, because I really don't use Windows a lot at all these days, certainly not for any work. I've a feeling that Windows is capable of writing ISOs, but I can't be completely sure on that. Maybe somebody can correct me whether that is true or not. But in case it doesn't, there are various packages that can write ISOs to USBs or DVD CDs. I found Rufus to be quite a useful little utility. It's a simple web address, just rufus.ie, and it takes you to their landing page here, and it gives you several options to download. I use the portable one because you can just copy it anywhere and run it from that place. You don't need to install it or anything. You could put it on a USB stick and run it from the USB stick on any machine you plugged it into, any Windows machine you plugged it into. So it's quite a useful thing to have that as a portable executable. So once you've downloaded them, all you need to do is to run Rufus, and when you plug in the USB stick, it will see the USB stick so that it knows, or it guesses that's where you want to write it. So there it is, it's come up with, where's my mouse gone? There it is. Okay, it's Windows just trying to do something with that USB stick. Don't let it do anything to the USB stick. You don't want Windows interfering with it. You just want to... Right, I think the battery's running out on the mouse here again. I've just had to move it. Yeah, you just want Rufus to deal with it. You don't want Windows interfering at all. So the things you want to change here is to, first of all, select the image. So click select, double click the ISO image wherever you've put it, and it comes up with details about it, about the ISO image. And there used to be an option which seems to have gone now, where it asked what type of image. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be here anymore, where you'd select whether it was an ISO or not. It seems to have been removed. I always found it rather confusing why it would ask you this question when you've obviously given it an ISO. There must have been a good reason for it. So basically, you don't need to click anything else. You can just click start. And when it does that, it asks you this question about, do you want to write it in ISO image mode? Oh, maybe this is what I was thinking about. Or do you want to write it in DD image mode? Oh no, sorry. I'm just looking at some notes I made previously. Other times I've done this. You did used to have to select ISO. So if you did, on this screen here, if you did have an older version of Rufus, it will look different, and there was an option where you'd have to select ISO. So if you have got an older version, just make sure that you've selected that. With this newer version, obviously there's nothing there. When you click start, it doesn't start straight away. It asks you another question. Do you want to write it in ISO image mode? It recommends that, or write it in DD image mode. Well, in Linux, an ISO would be written using DD normally. I can't think actually offhand if there'd be any other way of doing it easily. So I would recommend to, even though it says ISO is recommended, I haven't tested that, but I would select the DD image mode and write it as if we were writing it in Linux. And then click OK. Now I won't click OK because that will take a little while to copy, about 15-20 minutes. The USBs get hot. I don't know if they throttle down because they get hot or if it's just because they're slow writing. Even though this is a 3.1, a USB 3.1 device, it still takes a number of minutes. So I'm not going to actually get that writing. It's already written on the USB just for time's sake. So when that's done, that's all you need to do. You can close it. As you see, Windows came up and said it didn't recognise it, or it wanted to format it because it's a foreign format. You can see it's found 3 partitions on there, D, E and G. So that's all they're ready and waiting. So all we need to do now is to reboot into that USB and start getting the environment ready for building Linux from scratch. Now, when you reboot, you want to force the USB stick to be the device that the machine boots from. Some machines, it might be the default that it looks for external devices such as USB or DVD, CD-ROM devices to boot from. Other times, it may be just the hard disk that's the default, just for speed, just so that it boots the hard disk quicker because it's not searching or trying to boot from other devices. Whichever way your machine does, unfortunately, you're going to have to research that if you don't know how to affect that. On some machines, such as Asus machines, it's F8, and you'll get a menu coming up with all the possible devices that can be booted. Other machines, you might have to press F12 or F10 or F2. Some machines it's F9 to get a menu up. Other machines, you might not even get a boot menu. You might have to go into the BIOS, the UEFI BIOS, and reboot into a particular UEFI image from the BIOS. One other thing is, mentioning UEFI, I've turned that off. In fact, I haven't turned UEFI off. I've turned off the security setting on the BIOS, because as soon as you boot into Linux that hasn't got any signatures, any security signatures, the machine won't boot. So that's already turned off. I can't show you that, unfortunately, because I'm recording this via the HDMI port and it doesn't get initialized while the machine is booting. So it's not initialized during the BIOS or the UEFI BIOS editing, and it doesn't get initialized until the operating system initializes it. So either Windows initializes it or Linux initializes it. So unfortunately, whenever I reboot, you won't see the screen come back up again until it's actually booting the computer rather than at the initial boot. So I can't unfortunately show you that. But yeah, you need to turn the security settings off. Preferably put it into something like the compatibility mode would be ideal, because I'm not planning on showing Linux from scratch booting from UEFI. It involves a little bit more from beyond Linux from scratch. If you do want to boot from UEFI, I have done it previously a couple of times. So again, look at my older videos if you want to find out how to do that. Another thing is that I always, or almost always, build the System V version of Linux from scratch. I assume it's the default because that's the one that's offered first, and the System D version is an alternative that's offered. Again, I have built System D. I tend to build that when I'm building the UEFI version because the two sort of tend to go hand in hand. But again, I do System V because it just makes the installation a little bit simpler. But obviously, if you do want to learn a bit about System V or the installation of it, then once again, you can check my older videos for occasions when I have actually installed it. So I'm going to now shut this down and, well, reboot it actually. So shut down, sign out, restart, and in this machine, which is an HP, it gives you, well, you can either press F9 to get a boot menu, or you can press Escape, which will give a startup menu, which gives other options as well, which you can't see at the moment, as I say, because the fact that the HDMI port doesn't get initialized.